a lot of times autistic people kind of mask to appear socially acceptable. And we laugh the more we learn about ourselves is like, I don't want to be like them. I want to be like me. Like, y'all are weird. There's there's a misunderstanding that we're trying to get autistic people up to be able to function on everyone else's level. No, we have our own level. We have our own world. We're happy in it. Just help us, make small accommodations. I think when we create more room for that, it becomes like a safer and more accepting environment, I think, for everyone.
Hi, everyone. It's Rosie here. Welcome back to Radio Headspace. As you know, I'm a student of clinical psychology, and something I've been trying to understand at a deeper level is autism, especially now as it's constantly in the news. In this conversation, I talk with Taylor Heaton, the founder of Mom on the Spectrum, a YouTube channel and community about what it's like to live with autism. We discuss what it means to live authentically as a neurodivergent person and why community plays a pivotal role in that journey. I learned a ton from this conversation, and I hope you do too.
I
Um,
know.
Thank you so much for doing this. I
Absolutely.
have been consuming so much of your content. I
Oh my
love your
gosh.
YouTube. I
Oh,
love
thank
your
you so
YouTube
much.
channel. Uh,
Oh,
and yeah, so we're really excited to have a conversation with you today. So thank you for being here. I would love to just start off with a little bit of background. So if you could talk to me about your autism diagnosis. I know it happened later in your life, and I was just curious, like, what prompted you to go down this path?
yeah, it's been about 5 years now since I got my diagnosis. So I'm 36 and I received my diagnosis when I was 31, kind of amidst the pandemic and everything. So it was a very eye-opening time in many ways. I started pursuing that diagnosis because one of my friends I found out that I went to college with had been diagnosed with autism. And when I heard that, I was like shocked. I realized that if she was autistic, then maybe I didn't understand what autism was, because we were in the music program together at where we went to college, and she was very socially skilled, and just it wasn't the picture that I ever had in my mind of autism. And so she was kind enough to meet me for coffee, and I picked her brain, and it was kind of one of those conversations where my world just kept, like, my mind just kept being blown, like, wait, but it was kind of the Spider-Man meme, of like, wait,
Yeah.
but like me, I do that too. And so I just started learning, and my mind was like blown open with all of these new understandings of kind of neurodivergence. And I resonated with so much of what she said. Kind of at the same time this was happening, my son was pretty young. I guess he would have been 3 or 4 at the time. And he was having some like learning differences and communication differences that I hadn't noticed with my oldest. And so I was also kind of reading on the side. I stumbled upon a book by Elaine Aron called The Highly Sensitive Person. I was reading that. And so kind of like all these things started converging. I had also been in therapy for a while, trying to find a therapist who could basically help me make sense of my brain, because I've always known that my brain was different. Like I just will see how other people interact with the world, and I'm like, I know I do it differently. So when I stumbled upon this information, it was kind of like the key that helped me feel like this is me. This is my brain. And so I pursued the official diagnosis, and it's changed my life. Like I like to say everything changed and nothing changed, but it's been a wild ride since then.
Well, it's so interesting, right? When you get a little bit of insight to something that you couldn't really name. And once you have the information, it just provides just a deeper sense of
Absolutely.
perspective, right?
That's why I say it didn't change anything, because I'm still me, but it changed everything because I had words to actually describe my experiences. And even now, I get to work with autistic adults every day, and they'll share their experiences. And I'm like, wait, me too. They put it into words, and then it's just this validation and this feeling of connection and being seen. And there's truly nothing like it.
Was there like certain things that would happen before where now you feel like, oh, this is why I do that? I'm sure maybe there's a list of them, but certain specific things that you can think about
Hmm.
now in hindsight
Yeah.
that perhaps you, as you are now, you're understanding your education, you can see in somebody else and point out like, oh yeah, this thing is very familiar.
Yeah, that's a big question. So for me, there's a lot of sensory preferences that I have. So I like the lighting to be a certain way in my house, like with lamps and no overhead lights. I need a lot of solitude, not a lot of I need a lot of alone time to process. It's not that I don't like being social. I actually really enjoy being social, but it's like I have to charge my battery and then I have to replenish that battery a lot, like after I go out. So I used to kind of like, I guess in high school and college, I'd not make myself go to parties, but I didn't really like understand why everybody wanted to do that so badly, because it just was so overwhelming to me. Like, I love the people there, but can't we, talk in a place where we're not screaming at each other kind of thing. So yeah, just understanding that I prefer one-on-one connection. I am social, but I have to kind of save up my battery for that. And then just sensory preferences that I notice where, when I'm overwhelmed, I really have to have on like comfortable clothing. I have to stim. That's one thing I recognize a lot in late diagnosed autistic adults is that we've kind of trained ourselves out of stimming because at some point somebody was like, why are you doing that? Or that's annoying or
Mm.
quit doing that. But stimming is really, really important for autistic regulation. And so that's one thing that I've noticed about myself as well.
Can you just for the people that are listening now, if they don't know what stemming is, can you tell us what it is and what the purpose of it is?
Yeah, so stimming is any kind of repetitive movement that helps you basically express energy out of your body. So the stereotypical type of autistic stim is like hand flapping. So that's what you're going to see in a lot of movies, like autistic people hand flapping. But there's so many different ways. Like one that I always get when I talk about it in videos, there's people in the comments like, "How did you know?" Toe scrunching. Some people will do that as a discrete stem because nobody can see it, nobody can comment on it. Twirling your hair, picking at your fingers, tapping on the desk, any repetitive movement that kind of helps you release some pent up energy, that could be considered a stem. And it's very important for regulation because I don't know how detailed to get into this, but autistic people, a lot of people will say that we feel like an antenna because we take in so much information. And so when we stim, that's a way to express a lot of that energy outward and for it to have some place to go so it doesn't just get all pent up.
I have a close family member who was recently diagnosed with autism, and nobody was surprised, right? We were
Mm-hmm.
all, everybody in the family, just everybody knew. But it almost gave her like this deep sense of autonomy. Like it gave
Yes.
her, that
Mm-hmm.
feeling of, okay, now we know. Now we know what this is, and we know why I've been so, I'm doing air quotes, different, even
Mm-hmm.
though she's been treated the same, but we just always catered to her um specific things whenever we'd have family gatherings. And she's so different now with the family, and everybody's so different about it now, especially because I feel like there's been way more conversation around adult ADHD and
Mm-hmm.
and an autism diagnosis. So what would you say people get wrong about autism? And in that same framework, like, where does this misunderstanding come from?
Oh, that is such a big question. What do people get wrong about autism? I think, first of all, that it's something to be pitied. I think when people share an autism diagnosis, a lot of times the response is like, oh, I'm so sorry, and r- truly, the more I study and live out this experience, it's just a difference. It's a different way of processing the world, processing information. Um, one example that I've used before is like someone who uses a wheelchair, it's not that they can't go into a certain building. It's just that they have to have certain accommodations to get into that building. They can use that building. So there's a lot that we can do that people think, there's certain limitations, but a lot of the world just hasn't been set up to allow us to operate in our full capacity. So I think, first of all, it's not something to be pitied. I have so much pride about being autistic. I love the way my brain works. I've talked about in my community and my groups, we laugh sometimes about unmasking a lot of times autistic people kind of mask to appear socially acceptable. And we laugh the more we learn about ourselves is like, I don't want to be like them. I want to be like me. Like, y'all are weird. Like, y'all are doing things strange. Like, why are you just not saying what you mean? Why is there this song and dance that you're doing before you actually say what you, so I think there's this understanding of like, we're trying to get autistic people up to be able to function on everyone else's level. No, we have our own level, we have our own world, we're happy in it. Just help us, make small accommodations. It's like you're talking about with your family. If she needs to eat by herself, don't give her a hard time about it. And I was going to ask, when you've made those accommodations, how do you feel like it's actually affected the level of connection in your family? Like, do you feel like it's
Mm.
enhanced that?
For me as a person, it definitely, I mean, I've always been like an empathetic and really understanding person,
Mm-hmm.
but I did see how it impacted the way that my family viewed her. I actually see her as paving the way for my family, just sort of like accepting
Mm-hmm.
what is.
Well, and that's such a beautiful thing too, because I feel like as autistic individuals are coming into their selves, like into a deeper understanding of themselves, it gives other people permission to be more of themselves, more of their selves, and to, like exactly what you're saying, speak up for what they want and need and see. And there's a lot of bravery, I think, in the autistic community for people that aren't afraid to be straightforward and to say what they want and think and feel. And I think when we create more room for that, it becomes like a safer and more accepting environment, I think, for everyone.
You're talking about the community and how protective you are. So you've built a really great community online. I think it's really great to be able to create safe spaces that really embody a deep sense of compassion. So I'm
Yeah.
curious, like what are some small things that you think we can do just as a community to help support people with autism?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think keeping it simple is the best way to go about most things. I think you can solve a lot of problems just by approaching with curiosity and not a need to solve or fix anything. Not a need, again, to like bring an autistic person up to a certain level. Like, um, really try to develop a curiosity about their life and their experience. And rather than thinking that you know what that might be based off of, I've said if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. You can't base autism off of one person's experience. So it's always the art of asking questions or asking if there are resources. If you've got an autistic individual and you're as a friend or a family member or coworker, ask them if there's a resource that has meant something to them that they could watch or read in order to learn more about your experience. But I think just generally staying curious and kind and asking questions, like autistic people, generally speaking, love a good question. So if you can develop good questions about their life, then that's a really great entryway into connecting with each other.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think that that's always the key, right? Asking questions and being genuinely interested. So if you were recently diagnosed with autism, what's the playbook? Like what do you need to do immediately, or what would you recommend?
What do you need to do immediately? Well, first of all, processing time is so important for autistic individuals. So take the time and space that you need. You don't owe anybody your diagnosis. You don't have to share it with anyone. You don't have to open up and share that with anybody when you're not ready. So I think it's really important. It was for me, and that's why I created the community that I've created, but also for the people that I've come in touch with. The most important thing has been plugging into a community who understands you. And so my community was born out of this need to like share my story and then connect with other people who understood that. So oftentimes, unfortunately, it seems that when autistic adults share their diagnosis with other people in their lives, a lot of times it's met with invalidation or, well, everyone's a little bit autistic. You must be really high functioning. You don't seem
Mm.
autistic. There's things that are said that really invalidate the experience. So one of the very best, most important things to do is to plug in to a community of neurodivergent adults, autistic adults, where you can feel heard. You can even, there's a lot of lurkers in my community where it's like they don't feel comfortable yet like sharing or asking questions, but where you can just see other people having real conversations and unmasking. That's one of the most healing parts of the journey.
So building this online platform, so whether it's writing books or speaking or your YouTube channel, I know you have memberships, you have so many different ways to connect with people and to build support groups, I'm going to say. What have you learned the most in your experience at this point now about connection and vulnerability and putting your story out there for people?
I think it's one of the most important things. I think that the more we get into AI and like all of, the political divide and just so everything that's going on right now, the more important community and like authentic human connection becomes. There is nothing that can replace it. And like I feel emotional talking about my community because they mean everything to me. And there's people who have had so many invalidating experiences or have been gaslit for so long. I have 60 and 70 and 80-year olds in my connection groups that I run every week where like for the first time they feel like they actually, going back to vocabulary, have words for the first time in decades and decades to describe their experience. So what I've learned is that sharing your story is everything. That's what makes us human. That's what helps us heal. And it also helps, like one of the things I'm most passionate about is helping people let go of shame, because for so often, for so long, like so many of us have been told that we're too different or too weird or too much or overthinking or we're oversensitive, and there's a lot of shame that we attach to who we are as a person because maybe we just didn't get it right. But there's so many different ways to live, there's so many different ways to grow, and I think that healing is just exponentially, I don't know. There's healing in community. There's just absolutely nothing like it. It's like I feel like I'm cheering. It's the most special thing in the world to have a community like the one that I have.
I love that, Taylor. And thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, it really is so special. And I want to validate how important it is, especially in the climate that we're in now, right? Like it's so important to be able to have this type of support and these types of spaces. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you don't mind me asking about what your feelings are around what's happening right now. I mean, there's a lot of dehumanizing and this thing causes autism, which makes it inherently bad. And the way that autism is being portrayed right now, um, it has to have an impact on the community, I'm sure.
Hmm.
So what is the type of dialogue you are hoping we can have so that we can provide better support for the autistic community so that they don't feel alone?
Right. Thank you for that question. Again, I think keeping it simple is really important. So, being curious about each other's experiences, I think it can keep coming back to that. I'm reminded of an earlier question you asked. You asked about misunderstandings and how we got here, because there's been a lot of misinformation that's been promoted for a really long time, especially as it relates to autism. So originally, one of the things that was promoted as a cause of autism was refrigerator mothers. So mothers who were cold towards their children. Like this was documented. Like it was said that cold mothers gave their children autism. So when things in the media are shared, other causes of autism that put more guilt and shame and blame on the mother, what I have to say is that I don't have a lot to say about that. We know when we hear misinformation, when something is not lining up, there are so many other better conversations happening. And there are some conversations that just aren't worth being a part of. So I would encourage you, if you really want to support the community, the autistic community, listen to autistic voices, listen to autistic authors, listen to autistic communities. There's an organization that's doing phenomenal work, the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. They've been interviewed by major news outlets during all of this, the recent headlines. They do tremendous, phenomenal work, and they're on the front lines learning how to best advocate for us. And the people in leadership are autistic individuals doing the work. So pay attention to the autistic voices. When your gut says that something's off, switch, pivot. There's some people and arguments and information that we don't have to listen to. You can choose what you give your attention to. That's something that I say a lot in my community. What you focus on, you create more of. So what are you focusing on? What is that adding to your life? And where do you want to go? Look in the direction that you want to go and take a step in that direction.
Wow, thank you. What a great way to close us off and to give us actionable steps to help the community and to be supportive. So thank you so much, Taylor, for your insight and for what you do and for what you've created. I mean, it truly is inspiring to see. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank
We're,
you for being curious about the autistic experience and for asking questions and wanting to learn. That makes a huge difference. It's a great example. So thank you so much.
Where can people go to connect with you or get more information or join one of your communities?
Sure. My website is momonthespectrum.life, and you can learn all about my connection groups there. But then I'm also, I post weekly videos on YouTube. Just search for Mom on the Spectrum. And I'm also on Instagram and TikTok.
Taylor, thank you so much again for being
Thank
here
you.
and for joining us. Everybody that's listening, you can get all of those links that Taylor just mentioned in the show notes of this episode. If you're watching this on YouTube, just go to the description below and everything will be linked there. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And thank you for joining us on Radio Headspace. We'll see you back here soon.
Thank you so much.